now.
Welcome to WRAF's award-winning Nightcall, Detroit's longest-running phone-in talk show with Peter Werbe.
What I remember about elementary school is hating it. Because a friend of mine said the purpose of school is to kick the animal out of you. The classes were like tombs. I flunked the 8th grade. I see this as one of the best things that happened to me. I got kicked out of high school when I was 17 or 18 for disciplinary reasons. My parents were decidedly unhappy, and they found out about this program up in Big Rapids at what now is Ferris State University. So I went up there and I finished high school, and then so I said, yeah, this is great, this college atmosphere of learning and not having this repressive discipline nature of the high schools really made me interested in learning. Well, going to Michigan State had a really dramatic effect on me. Once I got to college and I realized that I didn't need to be rebellious, I could actually go to class when I wanted. And all of a sudden I realized that all my dislike for authority and distrust of it and for constituted and received knowledge actually had a coherent body of intellectual thought behind it. So I became immersed. When my wife and I got married in 1963 and we came back here, the idea was I would become a lawyer, and began working with a publication called the Fifth Estate, then newspaper, which began in 1965. So I was always interested in political ideas and putting them out there. At one point, the program director of WRIF Radio in Detroit said he wanted some youth-oriented programming and came to the Fifth Estate. So I did a phone-in show. And at one point they needed a music DJ, and I thought, cool, this is great, because I loved the music of the times, and I was stuck there for 4 or 5 hours making every mistake under the sun that a DJ could make. Working for the Fifth Estate mainly has been an ethical imperative for me. I've lived a privileged life, being a middle-class white male, and it's that privilege is always based on the backs of other people. And I think I owe back. And I don't do it out of guilt. I do it out of a sense of responsibility to other people and to the planet. But in the process, it's made for, I think, a very interesting and enjoyable life. It's defined my life, I guess you'd say. I hate equivocation. It's defined my life, yeah. Most people think history began 2 or 3 weeks ago. My experience was we chose to be involved in it, not by so-called rioting, but by covering it for the Fifth Estate. Again, we had the privilege, the racial privilege and class privilege here of inserting ourselves into what was a pretty chaotic and violent scene at our choosing. I mean, at first we left the city because we think, whoa, this is getting too crazy. And then we came back in, and as journalists, we're all through the so-called riot areas, and then at the end left for Maine, which the people that most affected by it, the people of color, didn't have the opportunity. And twice I had guardsmen point weapons of war, M1 Garands, at me and essentially threatened me. But so we said, all right, well, let's go over and interview the National Guard. So we went over to Central High School in Detroit, where I had gone to high school, and we rolled up there, and this guy, it was all chain link fenced off, and the guy with an M1 Garand says, yeah, and I said, we're reporters, we have credentials, let me see him. So we held him out, and he raised his gun, and he said, I know your fucking paper. Get out of here. I'll blow your fucking head off. And I just put the car in reverse. Didn't even say anything. Just put the car in reverse. And Harvey said, "What the hell was that?" I mean, he was shaking so badly. I mean, I had a little more experience in the area than he did. During the rebellion, the National Guard gratuitously tear gassed the Fifth Estate office. They blew a tear gas grenade through the offices, and I remember, and I recount this actually very accurately. I opened the door, and then I had an automatic closer. It closed, and I thought someone had hit me from behind. I mean, I just wound up on the floor, and then I realized that I was breathing in something noxious, and I staggered out, fell onto the ground, because the gas that the National Guard was using is not meant to be inside a building. It's meant to disperse crowds outside. But these guys, must have known the Fifth Estate, known it was a rebellious publication, and said, we've got the guns, even though you may have the numbers. I think that universal choices, which is somewhat codified in the philosophy of existentialism, where your individual choices are expanded to universal choices, are very important. And if you're very satisfied with the world as it is, well, maybe then you'll just choose to root for the tigers and the lions. It'd be the extent of your activity. Rebellion against things as they are, to me, is essential for someone who is an ethical person. There is so much exploitation and oppression and destruction of the planet going on. The old saying that if you think things are okay, you haven't been paying attention. It's oftentimes just individual rebellious acts, small acts that we can do each day to rebel against illegitimate authority and oppressive institutions, or you can become involved in social movements, go to the demonstrations, define yourself as a social activist, which I guess is another way I would define myself. Old people or older people always wish they were young. I don't. What we should almost look for is older people, is look for advice from young activists. Okay, that's a wrap.